Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to my channel. So I'm going back to uni in a couple of weeks and I'm going to be starting my third year at medical school, and third year is the year when everything kind of changes. We're going to be doing our dissertation, then we're going to be going into placement, so medical school isn't really going to be the same as it's been for first and second year, and so I thought I'd take the opportunity not only to reflect myself and remember the joys, the highs and the lows of first and second year, but also to give you guys a bit of an idea of what medical school is actually like in the early years, what we get up to, how we're taught, all these kind of things, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. So the majority of first and second year was just lectures, and I mean a lot of lectures. Lectures literally on everything, on pharmacology, anatomy, public health, patient safety, epidemiology. A lot of days were 9 to 5, sat in a lecture theatre, getting hot and stuffy, getting tired, and a lot of the time I spent literally scribbling down notes and trying to keep up with the PowerPoint that was very quickly being clicked on, and trying to note down everything the lecturer was saying. And every term I kind of had a re-evaluation of, hang on, I don't think I'm taking my notes in the right way. This term I'm going to try and actually sit and listen to the lecturer rather than scribble down every single thing that comes up on the PowerPoint slide. And every term I got into my first lecture and thought, nah, actually I'll just try and scribble everything down. And I just went in a vicious cycle of knowing I shouldn't really be taking my notes in this silly way that I was, but just still doing it in that same way, which is just to scribble and ooh, there's a fly, to the point where my fingers were going numb and I wasn't even taking in anything anymore. But there was such a nice community feel about lectures. The whole year group sat there together. I could sit with all my friends and just laugh about how impossible the content was and things like that. So I did really enjoy lectures, and I think maybe if we're not going to be having so many lectures this year, I don't really know how this year's going to work, to be honest. There'll definitely be something I'm going to miss. Dissections, they were definitely a highlight of first and second year. So most weeks we had a 3 to 4 hour dissection where we'd be in the dissection room and basically we'd be going through a part of the body and dissecting it and finding things as we go. And this was a really valuable way to learn. The only thing I kind of regret for my first and second years is that I probably should have done a lot more reading and a lot more learning of the anatomy before I went into that dissection, because I was often kind of a bit clueless of what I was looking at. But yeah, I mean, it was very cool, and over the last 2 years we've worked through the whole body, literally from top to bottom, pretty much everything. The only thing we didn't dissect in the dissection room was the brain, because we got them and did them sort of in labs and went through them a bit differently. But other than that, everything I've now seen, and that means that technically I should know the anatomy of the whole body. So then of course we had the clinical side of the teaching, which was done through hospital visits and GP visits. So hospital visits, basically we would learn a clinical skill, so we'd learn how to do an examination. So for example, an abdominal examination, we'd get taught how to do it, and then in a couple of weeks we would go and practice it in a hospital. And so we practice on simulator patients, so these are just volunteer patients who have come in just purely to help our teaching, which is very kind of them to do. So we'd practice on them, and then we'd go up to the wards and actually practice on real patients that were in hospital at the time. And yeah, again, this was a very valuable way to practice. I feel like it's probably the only way you can learn clinical skills, is to practice and practice them over and over again, and learn how to explain things to patients and learn what techniques work and what don't, and work on your communication skills. And so then GP visits, we'd go and sit in with a GP or like a practice nurse or something like that, and we just kind of watch what went on and just observe and ask questions, and occasionally get to do some hands-on stuff, like quite simple, like taking their blood pressure. Yeah, I did enjoy GP visits actually. I feel like you learn a lot from watching how other doctors communicate with patients, and you can kind of pick up like good techniques that they have. So then we had seminars, and we only had these, they were on Wednesday mornings, and they were only like every kind of few weeks, and we'd sit and we'd basically just have a big discussion about certain topics. So mainly it was kind of the ethical side of medicine. I really enjoyed seminars. They were a good way to just kind of like talk out like various issues. So then we had workshops. So these were things where you go and sit in kind of like a lab or like a classroom, and you'd get given like a worksheet to do, and you'd have a kind of teacher that would talk you through what the tasks were, and then you'd basically just work on the tasks, and it was an opportunity then you could ask for help, because often in lectures you can't really ask questions and you don't really know what your questions are until you actually try and solve a problem and then realise that you actually do have quite a lot of questions. Often we actually learn a lot from these, just from having that person that you can talk to and ask questions to. We also had practicals, so we didn't have many of these, but these would be in labs. When we were learning about ECGs, so like things that monitor the heart, we'd do a practical where you'd have to put the ECG leads onto someone in your group, and they were quite fun because it's more, yeah, it's like medicine in a more practical sense, and just made a change from sitting in lectures all day. We also have microscope sessions. Now, I've got to say, they're not the most fun things ever. Most medical students, I feel, don't like histology. So histology is like viewing something under a microscope and like understanding what you're seeing. And these microscope sessions, it would be so many of us in this lab, and then one person with a microphone talking us through the microscope slides. And basically, when we were in first year, I think the first few weeks we had them, we actually used the proper microscopes, and we'd literally be looking through this thing. Half the session you'd spend trying to actually focus the microscope and just like looking at this weird blur and being like,
well, I can't see anything.
But then we kind of quickly realised that actually there's a virtual microscope which is online, and so you go on it and it's just on your laptop and you can just see everything so clearly. You can zoom in, you can screenshot bits, put them in your notes, made it so much better. So anyone starting medicine at Nottingham, use the virtual microscope. Don't bother looking in the actual microscope, you're never going to see anything. Well, I mean obviously you would, but like it was a lot of fat. So another thing we had were plenaries. So we had these at the end of every week where basically the whole week of lectures would be based on a case. So let's say it was asthma, then all our lectures would be all about the lungs and asthma treatments, all kind of like respiratory related things. And then at the end of the week we'd have a long lecture from a consultant in that area, so like a consultant respiratory doctor. They would basically talk us through the case of the week, and the case would kind of develop throughout the week. So it would start off like, oh, this lady comes in and she's finding it hard to breathe, and then each day more of the case would be released, and it was kind of quite exciting if you ask me. And then at the end of the week it would all sort of get tied up and we'd have a chance to kind of ask questions. And at the end of second year we had kind of like a massive 6-week block, or was it 4 weeks? I think it was 4 weeks. 4-week block where it was just case studies, so we didn't have any like new lectures. Well, we had a few new lectures, but mainly it was just working on a case by ourselves in groups and working out like what we would do in real life if that patient came in and what kind of factors we'd have to look at. And it was like we were directing our own learning, and that was quite fun. We also are doing at the moment, this is an ongoing thing which we haven't finished yet, a community follow-up project, and this is where we each get assigned a patient from near where our GP practice is, and you have to kind of follow them through healthcare and meet up with them and visit them in their house and just kind of chat to them about their health and like how it impacts their life. And this has been really cool. So I've met up with mine a few times, and you have to do a presentation on them and you have to do an essay as well, which we haven't done yet, but that's like the last part of it. And yeah, it's pretty cool that you just kind of get to focus on one person and like see their journey through healthcare and see like what they think of everything and get like an insight into what it's really like to be a patient in certain situations. And so lastly, the rest of the years, I mean, from what I've said you can tell that it's a pretty busy timetable, very full on, just a lot of contact hours, a lot of lectures and workshops and seminars and visits to hospitals and GPs and all these things. So it was very busy, and in all the time when we weren't doing those things we were pretty much revising. Obviously bulk revision is at the end of the year, but throughout the year we had formative assessments just to sort of let us know how we were doing. So we'd have to kind of revise every 12 weeks, and even in between that it was often kind of like you'd have to do extra work to understand something or go over things or make sure your notes were complete or catch up on lectures you'd missed or anything. So basically it's a very full-on course, but it's a lot of fun and it's very varied, and I've really enjoyed first and second year. Very apprehensive to see what third year is going to hold, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope that kind of gives you a flavour of what medical school is like, especially at University of Nottingham, because some of the things that we do are specific to Nottingham. But yeah, I hope this video was enjoyable. Remember to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it. There will be lots more videos tracking my progress through medical school. as well as lots of other fun stuff too. It's not all going to be medicine related, don't worry. Have a great day and see you very soon for my next video. Bye!